Hello, my name is Omar Rampersad. It is November 6, 2018 at 2:29 p.m. in Toronto. So I'm just going to confirm here that the tweets I tweeted today on ROSHINI 911, those were mine. They're not hacked tweets. Um, so I talked about Rahini Bessasa. So I was reading today on the news that in one of the news websites that she had a 1 day trial, and most likely will be found. There'd be a ruling that was suggested. The ruling was suggested that she be found not guilty by reason of insanity, basically. So, not criminally responsible due to insanity. So there was a 1 day trial, and there were two psychiatrists, I think, who did assessments and found her not guilty because she was insane at the time of the act. She did commit the act, there is no question about that. I also read that she had a small knife and she used it once, and the person died. So, if somebody was really angry, they decided to use a knife. First of all, it wouldn't be a small one; it'd be a big one. And second of all, it would be used more than once. I'm very surprised that the person died. If it's a small knife, depending on how small it is, and it was used once, um, common sense would dictate that the person would probably have a good chance of survival, the victim. But she died. So there was a lot of so that was the most recent happening in that case this week. So it would seem that she would probably spend the rest of her life in a psych ward. So her life is pretty much destroyed. At the time that the act was committed, the crime was committed back in 15, I believe, 2015. There were some articles that talked about her background leading up to the crime, starting from when she was a child. So she came to Canada when she was a child, having been left at home for a while, separated from her parents, who was here with two other kids, and then she came up afterwards, and then she had issues with her parents about the culture and dating and so on, and wearing makeup and moving out and so on. I read that at some point um, she was washed with chicken blood. So this is a conflict of beliefs, of a more modern take on life as a woman compared to what her parents had. So she had issues at home, so she was abused basically, and she moved out. So that abusive behavior and towards her by her parents is something that I'm experiencing and have experienced in the past from my sister-in-law and my brother. So when I came here, they were in my mind considered to be some sort of a, my brother especially, not so much my sister-in-law, a quasi parent, because my brother was 18 years older than me. So, and he's passed this year. So um, my sister-in-law and I never really got along, but I guess she saw herself as more uh, an older person who should tell me what to do, basically. And I had issues with that. So I moved out when I was 21. So there's a lot of parallels between these two between my family and Bessasa's family. The abusive behavior towards kids, towards children, I should say, towards girls, I should say, focused on the girls. So that abusive behavior would have flagged the person, flagged the child in the school system as vulnerable. Well, in my case, not so much because I started when I was 16, going on 17 by the time I got enrolled in school here. So I was much older when I came. But still, immigrants are flagged, especially new immigrants in the school system, at risk. They're seen as people at risk, and they're preyed upon. If there is teachers in the system that is infiltrated by traffickers, they're preyed upon. They're flagged to be trafficked, to be groomed to be trafficked. Now, there's a lot of issues that I'm not going to go into too much detail here about um, Bessasa's case that runs in parallel to the things that I experienced in my workplace, workplace harassment, um, because I'm flagged, and people are signing me out of the system. I heard whatever form that takes, having a receipt for me, family members having receipts for me, my sister-in-law having a receipt for me, and becoming police informants, basically community informants and police informants. So part of the community targeting program, once you're flagged, and I'm suspecting Bissau was flagged, especially after she was diagnosed with a mental illness. She was probably put in the community monitoring program. And in my case, it took the form of having receipts being registered into the system. I'm suspecting somebody in this building did this to start with, based on lies. And this would be traffickers who would be doing this. Because at the time I was flagged, I was working full time as an accountant. And I owned my own place, or was in the process of buying it. So I was financially stable. I had a full time job. My mom was still alive, so there was a lot of family stability. I was going back and forth visiting my brother, even there were issues visiting my mom, especially. So there's a lot of family ties. So there's, in that respect, there's a lot of differences between myself and Bissau, which is the reason why it's not going to turn out the way Bissau case turned out. But the point I'm trying to make here, and I know I'm meandering, is that the template used to first flag somebody, a victim, make them a target, and to bring them down, degrade them, dehumanize them, harass them, to bring them down in a step-by-step process is the same for all victims and all targets. So since I'm in the community program, Bissau being a diagnosed schizophrenic would have been placed in the community program as well. So she would have had people following her around, monitoring her, and reporting back to the cops. So this is exactly what I'm suspecting is happening in my case. Only there is no mental illness in my case. There is just symptoms of stress that's related to being monitored and harassed everywhere I go, and being a suspect anywhere I go, and being reported on anywhere I go, and being mobbed anywhere I go. There is no mental illness. If you subject somebody to this kind of torture, to this kind of harassment, 24-hour surveillance, and then having people see you share, because this is the way the satellite feed comes through, because you're satellite tracked. Keeping in mind it's covert, so it has to be satellite tracked, because you're being put in a remote prison. So you have to be tracked. In order to be tracked, you have to be satellite tracked. So your figure is seen, silhouette style, through the walls, in your house, anywhere you go. False imprisonment, really, that's what it is. But the community puts you in prison, basically, remotely. So one person is looking at you, or more, is looking at you at any given time, so you have no privacy. And if traffickers are taking advantage of people who are flagged and grooming them to become prostitutes or sex slaves, then that's a whole different part of this program. It's an add-on. People who intend to take advantage of targets. This is an add-on to the program because they're covered. Because a target is supposed to be disposed of and dehumanized and targeted. Therefore, it provides cover for all kinds of other criminal activity, and the person becomes, a magnet for all these criminals to come into her life and try to and try to get her engaged in criminal activity. So this is not going to happen in my case. It didn't in the past, even though I was younger, because of my upbringing, which was very different from BSSR. I was never abused as a child. I was supported. I was cared for. I was loved by my mom, especially, and my dad. So it's unfortunate the way Bissasa's case ended and her life. Um, it's very, very, very unfortunate. But in my case, it's not going to happen. I don't carry weapons. I don't believe in violence. My response to being harassed is to leave. And if I really, really can't leave, I will try to get it stopped by verbally telling the person to stop. I don't carry weapons. Absolutely no weapons on me. So, because I really believe that physical violence is definitely not the answer, but it's not going to help in any way. It's not going to result in anything constructive. And being put in prison is not going to be, um, it's not going to help in somebody who's trying to expose this. You can't do anything when you're in prison, obviously. So there's no point. There's absolutely no point in violence. It never was. Not even in self-defense, yes, but other than that, there's never a reason to be violent. Ever. There's always an alternative way of dealing with anger, incited anger, and frustrations that comes about as a result of being harassed. Anyway, so there was a point I was trying to make here, and this is the kids. Since I suspect that Bessasa was targeted as a child because she came here very young, and was probably targeted and flagged in the system, in the school system as well, to be trafficked and to be worked on and experimented on. There are others in the pipeline. There are other kids. There are other teenagers and boys, especially now. They're in the pipeline. And why do I use the word pipeline? Because when I was younger, in my 20s, I always heard the word, you're in the pipeline, you're in the underground, you're in the pipeline. So, and these were from harassers. And I never knew what it meant. Today, I know exactly what it means. It means that you're in the pipeline to be put in the underground to be trafficked. In other words, you're disappeared. And this brings me to another point. I believe that my sister-in-law, who's targeting me because she knows I'm a target, committed fraud and had my home put in a trust. She committed fraud and had me declared mentally incapacitated, all part of this targeting program. And she's also an informant. She's an informant to the community and an informant to the cops. And she's lying. She's saying things like, I left the door open to allow men to come in when I was living with her in her house. Absolutely, absolutely not true. In fact, it's just the opposite because I knew I was being stalked, so I would lock the door. There was one incident where she said I was streaking in her house. That incident was a classic example of how she twists what happened. The truth was I was about to take a shower, and as I do in my home here, I take my weight with nothing on just before I take a shower. So I'm naked basically because I want to have my true weight. I want to see, I want to see what I weigh without anything on. So I was about to step into the shower, and the scale was in the basement, and there's a shower in the basement. Um, and the curtains were drawn in the basement, and the windows are very small. And there was no windows really to look through where I was. And I stepped on the scale naked, and she walked through the door. And she said I was streaking, and I was probably showing somebody through the window. There was no windows in the basement to even look through. And the windows that were there had curtains on it, drawn. So a lie, basically lies, everyday occurrences twisted to make it look like I was doing something wrong that I wasn't supposed doing something that I wasn't supposed to. She was targeting me basically. Um, anyway, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. So um, um, being in the pipeline means that you're going to be isolated from your family. Your family is going to be infiltrated, like my sister-in-law is. The family is going to be abusive towards you as a result of being infiltrated, and you're in the pipeline. You're going to be disappeared. And this is the point I was trying to make. I heard there were name changes as well in this community file that the municipality has about me, and the cops probably. And my property was taken away already, and I was declared mentally incapacitated, no disclosure, while I'm working as an accountant and looking for jobs between contracts. When I finish one contract, looking for work after and finding it work, I'm still considered to be incapacitated according to this file. If somebody is incapacitated, they're supposed to be told, of course, and then they would take the documents to court and have it rescinded once you provide evidence that you're not. These documents were never provided to me. It was never disclosed and never provided, if this was in fact true. So this is all in the pipeline. You're in the pipeline to go into the underground to be trafficked, which I am being trafficked. I strongly suspect I'm being remotely trafficked to be gerbiled. And then, after gerbling and training, using gerbling to train, meaning hitting your genitals with remote technologies, you will be physically trafficked, raped and physically trafficked. And this is something else I keep hearing. You're going to be raped, you're going to be raped. And I tweeted about that too. In the pipelines, lots more other kids, which is why I'm talking. Talk to you another time.